What's good, assholes? We got another episode of the weekly show here. Going to be chatting about the new Specialized Levo. The whole Class 3 thing needs to be addressed, along with some other stuff going on with that bike. Then I just want to address some things about test bikes and some feedback that got brought up in the Ebike shootout. I'm going to break down some footage that I took at the Otter Slalom, because these guys are doing some absolutely insane stuff that's interesting to break down frame by frame. Fox has an upside down fork apparently, and I'll touch on an old school bike video. So let's get into it. So to start, we're going to look at the Specialized Levo 4. This is a huge release for Specialized and the whole e-bike market as a whole. The full power e-bike game is about to get really interesting, and there's a lot to talk about with this bike. I'm going to touch on the Geo. We got another bike equipped with the Genie shock, but in my opinion, the biggest talking point on this bike is one, the motor, but really the 28 mile an hour limit that you have the option to enable with this. And I think it's unfortunate. I think we're in a bit of an arms race with these e-bike motors right now. The DJI Avinox, I think, has Specialized, Bosch, and anyone else making motors right now a little bit worried. Yeah, unfortunately, I think this... You got something to say? What? This is Toby. Come here, Toby. You want to be part of the show? Trying to get as many animals on the show as we can. This is Toby. I'm at my friend's house in Squamish right now, doing a lot of bike riding, testing. So you'll see videos from this trip pretty soon. But back to the Specialized e-bike. I see this 28 mile an hour limit on this motor as just kind of a cheap way to gain an edge on the competition, and Specialized is probably going to sell more bikes because of this, but I think the mountain bike community suffers as a whole, just because we're going to start to get these bikes that look just like everyone else but are blitzing past people at 28 miles an hour. And in California, there's a lot of multi-use riding where there's hikers, bikers, equestrians, and right now e-bikes are being tolerated. It's been a pretty big battle to get trail access in a lot of these places. Brioni's is a great example of that. But if we have people screaming by hikers at 28 miles an hour, like, that is gonna start to cause some problems with the organizations and lawmakers that are granting access to bikes, in these trail systems. I don't see a good justification for it besides Specialized wanting to sell more bikes, and I don't think Specialized wanting to sell more bikes is a great reason to put trail systems and the whole status of mountain bike e-bikes at risk. So I think it's a cheap move. The bike industry's hard right now. Everyone's looking for an edge, but I do not think this is the best way to do it. You can just design a better bike. We've got some easy areas for improvement on the Levo, in my opinion. You will not be surprised to hear that I think it should have longer chainstays, especially in the larger sizes. Like, I think that's a good way to sell more bikes. A lot of people, especially on this channel, seem to value that in some sort of way, but it's not that bad. I just was really hoping for something more. The same critique I had on the Pivot Firebird, funny enough, it's damn near the same numbers. We've got a 443 chainstay, a 480 reach. With the head angle it has, it puts it at a 1.8 front to rear center ratio in a size large. That number is not terrible, but it's not that great either. I'd say it's like on the worse end of rideable. I can ride those bikes, but they aren't that inspiring to me, especially given that the short chainstay option is 435. On a size large, medium, extra large, the S3 through 6, I don't think a 435 chainstay makes sense. And it's just confusing because I think on some of Specialized bikes, they buy into this longer rear center philosophy and offer different size seat stays. They at least offer 2 seat stays on the Stumpy 15, which I tested. So you have the option to get a longer one and get the rear center out to almost 450. But on this one, it's just the same across all sizes, which in 2025, I think that's a miss. I think this is like a requirement now. You know, you can argue how long you want to go, but I think not offering a proportional stay in something that gets above the all too common 443 rear center on a size large, especially for an e-bike, is a miss. So no other way to slice it. And then it's another Genie shock bike. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one, because I think the piggyback Genies, from what I've heard, work way better. But the whole experience with the Genie on the Stumpy 15 didn't leave me like super sold on the whole concept. I think, again, there's just a lot of trade-offs, and then you're asking the customer to do a lot of tuning by themselves. So I don't know. I don't want to make too much of a judgment on the suspension without having ridden it, you know, doing a lot of bench bike riding here on this show, but I will actually have a chance to ride this bike in the coming months. So we'll get the full scoop on that when I get the chance. But my main takeaway is, yeah, I am not a fan of this 28 mile an hour limit. You're putting like the power in the hands of the users, and you know, myself included, if I had the 28 mile an hour option, I would be inclined to use it in more situations than it would be appropriate. You can't just expect the best out of people when you give them something like that. It's going to be abused. Whole class 3 thing, kind of a bummer. Moving on to continue talking about e-bikes, I just wanted to address some feedback that I got on the e-bike shootout, which I hope most of you have seen at this point, specifically regarding to the bike sizing. So we rode a size large in every bike except for the Crestline, and you know, in a couple brands, the size large was a bit too big for us. And I think there's 2 schools of thought here. You know, there was a lot of feedback that we should have been on the mediums, and I somewhat agree. However, I think it's also worth testing the bikes as the company designed them for our given size. Like Norco and Pivot, based on their sizing, say we should be on a size large. And you know, I think it's obvious for a lot of you guys that are really nerding out on these geometry numbers that'll be like, oh well, I would ride a medium, but it's like, I'm 6'1", you know, I should be a size large. And if the size large doesn't fit me and it's too big, I think that should be called out in a way, or addressed. Like, I should be reviewing the size bike I should be on. And the only outlier in that was the Crestline, because we actually, you know, they would have put us on a S3. It was just what was available. But for the other bikes, like the Norco and the Pivot, the size large should fit me. And if it doesn't, I think that's a reflection on the brand and their sizing philosophy, and it's worth critiquing in that manner. So I kind of wanted to address that and see what you guys think. Like, should I just get the bikes in a size medium if I think it should be in a medium? I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue going forward. But I don't know. Yeah, for future shootouts, like, where do you guys land on that? Should I test the medium if the medium's going to be closer for me, even though, you know, I shouldn't really be riding a medium? Or should I test the bike as it's sized for me from the company? So let me know what you guys think on that. And then one last thing to touch on with test bikes. I see it all the time on the channel. Why don't you test this? You should test this bike. You should test the frameworks. Plenty of you have commented to test the Cavins. For some reason, the Cavins comes up all the time. You know, whatever bike it is, I see a lot of comments asking me to test stuff. And the reality is, up till this point, I've sourced a lot of the bikes on my own. I've bought quite a few of the bikes, including the Stumpy and the Giant. Some I've been able to demo. That's the case with this Forbidden Dreadnought right now. But I was emailing with Forbidden for 6 months to make that happen. You know, that's not a bad reflection on Forbidden. It just is what it is. But if you want me to test a bike that you're interested in, the best way you can help me to make that happen is to email the company. I think it's fairly clear that I can't just go out and buy all the bikes I want to test. There's tons of stuff out there that I would love to ride. The Raw, the frameworks, plenty of other bikes that are intriguing to me. And I have emailed a lot of those companies, and it's just kind of not gone anywhere. But if you guys email them and say you would find value in my review, I think that's a way where we can get, the ball rolling on a lot of these reviews. So I don't want you to harass anyone, but if you want to ask these bike brands nicely that you value what I do on this channel and you'd love to see their bike represented, yeah, feel free to hit them up. Who knows what happens. Maybe there's some cool stuff that can come of that. But regardless, I've got a lot of stuff in the works for the summer. Going to be finally getting to a bike launch, hopefully doing more of those as this channel grows. And we've got a lot of testing coming up, including a downhill bike shootout that I'm trying to put together for later this summer. But moving on, I wanted to touch on some exquisite slalom techniques I saw at Sea Otter. Ryan Gilchrist, Braden Bringhurst, Cody Kelly, like the dudes at the upper echelon of the slalom game are just doing some bike wizardry stuff that is really impressive. So let's dive in and frame by frame some of this stuff because it's super interesting to me. Let's take a look at Braden here first. So he's going through the top roller section on the slalom course, which is really tricky. And there's this technique that I've honestly, maybe, I've seen it in the past, but watching this slalom footage really made me think about it. And it doesn't look like much almost, but, a simple roller double like this, he almost like leans forward and picks up his rear wheel early so it doesn't get the full pop of the length of the lip. And then he like extends and then puts his rear wheel down and then sucks up the bike right as he's going over the second roller, and then he's in a position to get a full pump into the next section. And it happens so quick, it's crazy. It just looks like he kind of like levitates forward and doesn't get the pop you'd expect off the feature, and then is able to just carry his momentum forward and be in a position to get like a perfect pump out of that back downside. Super high level stuff. Like most of the guys were not looking like that. And then we got Cody Kelly pretty much doing the same thing on the double out of the berm as he's setting up to triple what Braden just doubled over. And his setup is really similar. Like his back wheel comes off the ground before the peak of the roller, and then he fully pushes down and extends his body, like all steezed out too. And then it looks like he's just carrying his momentum all the way forward instead of going up. And then even with a bit of a clip on the rear end, he's able to push through it and then yoink this triple hella smooth. And then backsides the triple on point. But the reason he's able to do this triple in the first place is this crazy forward momentum air double pump type thing, which, I don't think I've ever done one of those. But yeah, let's see what else. And then another example of Braden here being like really dialed with his body position and using like the articulation of his upper and lower body to his advantage is just this simple double here. And this was causing people a lot of trouble. And he kind of does this double pump thing where he extends in the air. People were really struggling with clearing this feature, and you could see it robbing a lot of speed. Braden fully extends before he's gonna pretty much case this landing, but that gives him way more travel in his legs and his arms to suck up that impact. And then once he does, he's at the downslope of the landing and then fully extends again to get a pump. And I'll play some other clips, but there were not many riders that were able to suck this up and keep their forward momentum like these top guys were. But the ones that were able to were being really soft with their landing and then getting a really nice pump, where like if I was to hit this, I probably would just land fully stiff, and then my bike would probably skip over the downside and I wouldn't get a pump off that either. So it'd just be like clack, bounce, and then no speed. But when you think about it, it makes sense. To actually do this smoothly and in the split second that it takes for all this to happen takes a lot of skill. And then Braden steezes the shit out of that next straight. Yeah, Ryan Gilchrist is absolutely cracked in this one. So comes around this corner. Again, does this like kind of double pump thing. Bounces off the flat. Gets a crazy pump on this roller. And then this move is absolutely insane. This backside right here is basically a curb. I mean, it's almost vertical. There's a little bit of slope to it. But he pre-hops, and look how close his bars are to his chest. Like, fully sucked up the bike, and then pushes it down so aggressively, and actually gets a pump on the backside of that near vertical face. Like, what the hell is this? You can hear his like tire get like a little roll as he just pumps the shit out of it. So it's like most people are just pedaling off that going to flat, and Ryan is actually generating speed off a pump, off of something that I have no idea how you fit a freaking wheel in. And I don't know, like these pumps are like really high risk too, because if you don't get the pump right, just slamming your bike into the ground and not getting any of that downslope is going to be slower. Like a missed pump is almost worse a lot of times than not pumping at all. So it's high risk, but how precise he's able to be with all this is just nuts. And then he's like, oh yeah, what up? I'm just going to manual the face of this steep ass lip and nose off it. Like, what, dog? This takes so much commitment, because if you mess it up and drop your front or don't drop it enough, you are signing yourself up for a full OTB. Hey, what do you have to say about Ryan Gilchrist? Interesting. All right, thanks for the input, Toby. But yeah, I don't know. Just the level of bike riding that was going on at that event was pretty impressive. All right, finishing up here. Fox has an upside down fork. I don't know. I think they went about it correctly using a 20 mil axle. I haven't spent more time on the push fork yet. I'm trying to get a full review done, but I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But we needed torque caps on that fork to give it a fair shot, and but without the torque caps, it was way too flexy. I know you guys have been asking about the push fork, but that's the gist of it. And I think for these upside down forks, or right side, depending on how you want to look at it, but yeah, they need a lot of stiffness from the axle area. So my only input is that it's a good sign that Fox went with the 20 mil axle. And I even think having custom end caps that just maximize the stiffness from that area could be a good move. I mean, it might be harder with the 20 mil axle because I don't know if there's as much space for the torque caps. But regardless, 20 mil axle makes me think that it's probably stiff enough, or at least stiffer than what we rode without the torque caps on the push fork. But hopefully we can do an upside down fork shootout and really get to the bottom of that. And then I just wanted to tease you guys. I'm about to ride the Forbidden e-bike. It's Wednesday today. I'm going to ride it on Thursday. So I'll be able to get a first-hand feel for the DJI motor and the Druid E core, which looks so freaking good. Geometry, motor, that's a bike that's going to be absolutely savage. But before we're out, I'll leave you with an old school bike video. You know I'm an Alex Rankin fan, and I was just going through the archives, and the Leger segment from Earth 2 is an absolute must-watch. If you're into metal, it has the most random, heaviest, sickest like metal song that I've heard in a bike video, and it's to Petey and Fabian Barrel going at it against each other, and it's edited in such a sick way where it's like shot for shot. They're going head to head, and then it ends in the most dramatic fashion possible, with Petey crashing out of another World Cup title inside of finish, one of the most iconic downhill race moments, I think, in history. So yeah, that segment's amazing. It's got young Sam Hill looking like an absolute G as well. So give that a look. Let me know if you guys got any other old school bike videos that you've been getting stoked on. I'm sure I missed some stuff. It's been a really hectic couple weeks. Been traveling all over the place and haven't been super plugged in. So let me know if there's anything you'd like me to cover in the next weekly show. And yeah, I think that's about it. We're going to shut this down. Ain't that right, Toby? I want him to speak. That's all you're going to get. All right. I'll catch you later.